And I'm a film writer for Entertainment Weekly. And I'm curious, how many of you here tonight are seeing The Perks of Being a Wallflower for the first time? You can clap. Let's hear that instead. All right. So most of you. Stephen Chbosky, the author, writer of the screenplay, and director. I'd like to bring him up.
Thank you.
You know, the film is set in Pittsburgh. It's where Stephen's from. It's where I'm from. And I think the question we always ask is, how Jins like it? Jins like it okay? Yeah, good.
Oh, we're so proud of you. You made a movie. That's great, Stevie. You made a movie.
Yin's doing okay. Yin's doing all right out there in Hollywood.
Doing okay. Have some chipped ham.
So, Stephen, we're here with you're all actors, correct? And I think the first thing we'd like to ask is about the casting of the movie. You've lived with these characters for a long time. You obviously had something in your mind when you wrote the novel, and I wondered how important was it for you to find an actor who matched precisely what what you wrote in the novel?
Well, it's not about, I mean, it was very important, obviously, but it's not about matching exactly. It was like, I wanted to do better than the book. I wanted to, like, writing the book and living part of the life that I lived and writing the screenplay, I kind of knew what I was looking for. There's always that moment where it goes click, where the actor walks in and you think, oh, maybe, oh, I hope so, and then it happens. And so, yeah, very, very important to me. But like I said, you know, it's interesting. Before we had the premiere in L.A., and I said, because the book it's very personal to me, and I'm very proud of it, but that I prefer the movie just because I got to know all the actors, and they get to be these characters forever, and I'm so proud of that, and each of them, you know.
So who did you start with? Was there a single actor who was the first to be cast, and the others were?
The first was Emma, and I didn't audition her. That was just an offer. Mm-hmm. And then
had she read the book and just been a fan?
No. She didn't know the book. She just read the screenplay. Her agent gave her the screenplay, and she fell in love with the line, "We accept the love we think we deserve," and she fell in love with the character of Sam. And then when she and I met, it was just instant kindred spirit. I knew she had a lot to prove to herself after playing Hermione for all those years, and she trusted me to help her do it. And yeah, she was first, and then I auditioned Logan to play Charlie, and once we had those two, then we went to studios.
And what about Logan were you looking for? Because for the lead role of The Perks of Being a Wallflower, you need somebody who can maybe not show as much charisma. So how do you detect lack of charisma in an actor?
Well, it's not even that. You know what's funny? This is what made it work, I thought, was that Logan, if you meet him in real life, he's a very confident person. He's been acting since I think he was 9. Professionally, he was in this show Jack and Bobby. He was Bobby, and he's done a ton of movies. And so you meet him, and he's like, so I thought, oh, I'll audition him for Patrick. But he's like, I really want to audition for Charlie. I said, really? Okay. And he brought it, but when he came in, it was, you know, it evolved, of course, because anything evolves with rehearsal and time and just, you know, working with the other actors. But right away, 5 seconds, I knew, wow, that's my kid. Mm-hmm. And I knew with the 3 leads, I just went in thinking, one of them is going to be hard to find. I don't know which one. I thought it was going to be Charlie, and it ended up being Patrick. Patrick was tough to find.
Why was he so tough?
I think because it's a demanding part in that you have to be all things at the same time. You have to kind of be the coolest guy. You have to be the funniest guy, the best look, because it's really a star part that's tucked third, and it was designed to steal scenes in the writing, and I wanted it to be that. But like what was important to me was that the character, that you have an actor that's funny and everything else, but at the same time never felt like a victim, never felt like, you know, just we've all seen, and there's been some great, amazing gay characters in movies. So I'm not disparaging anything, but just I wanted Patrick to be like Ferris Bueller, something different, like the toughest, the coolest kid, and so finding that with the right age, the right humor, who could also balance that. And Ezra Miller, I auditioned him. I did a callback with him over Skype, actually, because he was in New York and I was here. And Skype was actually our best friend a lot of times. And I went, oh, God, I found him. Holy crap.
That's interesting. So you're watching it on Skype. Does that give it like a cinematic feel, even though it's just Skype? It's not.
It does in a way. You know, listen.
As opposed to being in the room with you?
Yeah. The room and tape are very different things. And in casting, There are people that I auditioned for Patrick in the room, and I went, wow, man, this. Then I watched it on tape and went, oh, it's great it would have been great for different versions, a stage version of this, that, and the other. There's just different qualities that you find on tape than in the room.
And you actually cast quite a few well-known actors, famous faces, in relatively small parts
Right.
that might not normally attract somebody with that kind of marquee name value. How did you end up getting them? Was it affection for the book? And what was the process in casting those people?
I think it was, it's a great question. I wish I knew, exactly what did it. I knew, like, for example, Paul Rudd, I knew him a little bit in New York, and I wrote him a letter, and I sent him the script, and it was all about how I knew that he was the kind of person that, like kids, I'm trying to reach young people and let them know they're not alone, and everyone loves Paul Rudd, and so if you play the English teacher, it says something, and it could really help, and so he was on board for that. Melanie Linsky, I knew her work, she's brilliant, and I knew that I wanted somebody with a childlike quality to play Aunt Helen because I didn't want to portray her as this monster. And so Melanie, right away, she understood what I was trying to do, and just in meeting her, I knew it, and she wanted to go there. And really, I think, until this movie, and maybe I've missed one, I didn't know Dylan McDermott was funny. Dylan auditioned for us. I met him, and I liked him very much, but I was like, him as the dad, I don't know. I mean, he's so gorgeous and everything else and all the things he's done, but he wanted it, and he read, and he was hilarious. And Kate Walsh auditioned too. I think they just felt like a special one.
What about Joan Cusack? She turns up in the end as the
Joan,
doctor.
yeah. I don't know how. We really went through it with Dr. Burton, and we got close a couple times. And Joan was, I think, Leanne Halfin, our producer, one of our producers. Leanne thought of Joan. And I love Joan Cusack. She's fantastic. And so I thought, God, that'd be a miracle if you could. And she literally had one day between shooting Shameless and Family Obligation and everything else. She could fly in for one day. She flew in that morning, whipped together her wardrobe, makeup, shot all day, that scene, and a couple of little things that I ended up cutting out of the movie. Then she flew out that night.
Well, how was it casting where you shot, using actors from our hometown of Pittsburgh? Because a lot of films are shooting there now, thanks to tax breaks. And what did you find about
it's great.
shooting in the
Look,
Burgh?
you have Carnegie Mellon University right there, so there's a lot of great kids there. Some of the high schools, and I think because I grew up there, and I remember being that kid dreaming of doing this thing, that I loved hiring local. Any part that could happen locally was great. It also helped our budget, obviously, because of the travel and everything else. But no, it's just terrific, because you never know. You just never know that special person that walks through the door, and you want to give everybody a shot. And I don't know. It was always really, I'm actually feeling very nostalgic about casting. Because what's so funny is there are times that because I love the casting process and I love working with the actors, it's so interesting to think that there was a time of like, here, I'll give you a good example. And I'm nostalgic about this because it worked out. The way that casting works, the studio is actually really good with us. But I think the studio is always looking at, on some level, the bottom line. Like if they can get like this big star for anything, just the way that they crunch numbers and they can sell foreign territories, they want to do it, even if it would throw off the balance. It's just an instinct or a habit of theirs. But they were actually really nice with us. But I kept struggling with, I really wanted the family to feel like a family. I wanted them to look right together. I wanted to believe them as a family. And so I knew the group I wanted, and there were a couple of pieces that were like, well, what about this person? And it was a little bit of back and forth.
For the family, for the
father,
the family,
father, mother, older brother, sister, and everything. There were just that group, and I knew weeks in advance, like, I want this group. But we kept talking about other things, and I was shooting Monday. I didn't know that it was all final till Thursday, that was my family. And it's like, thanks for the rehearsal, guys. That's great. That's really good. So what I did was, just to get everybody on the same page and really help us, I wrote a 10-page history of the Kalmekis family, how mom and dad met, what they felt when the older brother was born, and just because I felt like I need to give them a chemistry right away. And what I found was details, atmosphere, certain things really help. Because my sister's an actor, and I know what helps her, and so I wanted to give them that.
You mentioned part of your pitch to Paul Rudd was that this is a movie that you want to not just entertain people, but actually reach kids, whatever your circumstance, whoever you are. It's easy to feel alone at that time, and feel isolated. You and I have talked about this before. I know you've gotten a lot of letters from people over the years about your novel. The novel helped pull me through some hard times.
Right.
That sort of thing. I wondered what the reaction like is to the movie. I assume it's similar, but is it a lot more in terms of volume, or how would you describe what's different about the reactions you hear to the movie versus the book?
You know, it's really interesting. There's one difference emotionally. The reaction to the movie is a lot more. The letters are more joyful, and I know that sounds strange, but there's something about the community. If you sit in an audience like this. And if you're just reading the book, it's you, your bedroom, and the book. And then you can say, oh, I relate to this book, but it's a solitary experience. Whereas a movie, even if all it is like you watch it on iTunes with two friends, you're having the similar experiences. So you feel less alone in a more visceral way. And so the letters I get are more of the excited OMG type versus the, I've gone through this horrible time and like this is, a lot of letters confess a lot of things that are very hard, and which has been very gratifying. The fact that it seems to have found this joy that I always wanted it to find.
Now, the story is set in the early '90s. I think this resonated in particular with me because I grew up again in Pittsburgh during the early '90s. This felt very familiar to me. I feel like those were my friends and people I knew, and I wondered what you thought. When you wrote it, it wasn't a period piece, but now, being a kid has changed so much. Just the technology that's available to you, and the way you present yourself, and the way it was easier to live a secret life when you and I
for sure
were kids. Harder to track, I guess,
yes.
from the parents. And I wondered what you thought was special about it from that time. You could have updated it. You could have set this story in 2012, but you chose not to. Why?
Because I wanted to, thematically, Charlie's an innocent character, and it's a story about, on some level, innocence corrupted, and then when you ultimately find purity, even without innocence. That's one of the themes that I have going on in my head, and I wanted to set it in the last breath before the internet changed communication forever. And so, it's set in the early 90s really for that, because we all know what the smartphone did and what internet did and texting. It didn't change adolescence necessarily, but it certainly changed communication.
What do you think that change in communication did about being an adolescent, though? Harder to be yourself or figure out who you are?
No.
You have to present yourself to the world sooner?
It's harder to be private. It's harder to make mistakes privately. In a lot of ways, it's actually a lot easier, I think, to be yourself now, because, okay, let's say let's say you live in this small town and you think Rocky Horror is cool, and there's nobody at your school that gets it at all, but you can go on anything, Tumblr or Facebook or whatever, and suddenly here's 40 million people that love this thing, and now I'm talking to them, and even though they're 4 towns over, I'm now getting a mirror to what I'm really secretly about. So in terms of that secret, in terms of, you can really connect to the people that you're meant to connect with.
That's interesting, because I was thinking about it in the opposite way, that it would be harder to be yourself because you have to put yourself out there in front of the world. You don't have to, but a lot of people do. I remember just being with different groups of people, and you might just consider, maybe I'll be a little goth this time and hang with these people, or maybe I'll be more of a jock. But it's interesting that you're right. It's easier to find people, even if they're not within your circle.
I just thought of something I want to share with you, and like everybody knows this, and especially, okay, you ever go to a baseball game or any ball game or anything where there's a jumbotron, right? Mm-hmm. And think back to when you were a kid and there was no internet and there was no YouTube and there was no anything, and it was just, and they put the camera on. I don't care who it is. What do? Right?
Right.
That's what we are as people. It's not even exhibitionism. It's like, oh my God, I'm here. It's me. Hi. And that's what the internet is. It's the jumbotron, and it's what is put on there. Sometimes you're like, oh God, like my little baby, she's my Macy, she's 5 months old, and I don't know how she's going to navigate it, but and it's hard. It's really hard. But yeah, I just thought of that jumbotron thing. It's totally true.
When did you begin thinking of this as a film? Were you writing the novel and thinking, I'd like to make this as a movie? Because your background is in film. You went to film school.
I thought of the title in film school my senior year. I tried it as a book. It didn't work. I tried it as a screenplay 3 times. It didn't work. And then finally it went click, and I wrote it as a novel first.
What was the click?
The click was, it was finding his voice and finding the way to tell the story, because it's the book is a series of those letters. Like I have some of them. Because that was a separate idea I had. I had this idea of like, oh, wouldn't it be great if I'll write this book of letters, and I'll claim that some kid found me in a phone book and has been writing me letters. And it was just like a kind of a gimmicky idea. Charlie and Perks and that whole idea of the tunnel and the ants and the older friends, that was something separate. And the click was really bad breakup. I was a pretty mixed up guy, and I took these 2 ideas, and suddenly Charlie was the kid writing. It wasn't some kid writing to me, and he was writing out into the world. And then once that happened, it just came. I wrote the first 2 letters in 10 hours. I barely changed a word from what's published. Within a month I had half the book. Took 5 months off. Within 6 weeks after that, I had the first draft, and the 3rd draft is what's published.
And it became a bestseller, but you held off on making a movie. I assume you had offers to buy the rights.
Yeah, no, I had offers, but it's Fox. Fox made an offer, which was really nice, when I was much younger and very, very broke. But I fundamentally knew this one was special. Like some things you sell and it's okay, and we're all making a living and it's great. This was not one of those things. This one had to be. I had to protect it, and I had to work on my craft and work on my art until I was ready to figure out a way to translate it, because it's not an easy adaptation. And it's the kind of thing where it took writing a few pilots to understand how to introduce characters lightning fast. That's in a memorable way. To name people things like, because the sister's boyfriend doesn't have a name in the novel, but I thought, if I call him Ponytail Derek, that's a really, really efficient way of sticking the landing and giving the actor something to chew on. So yeah, and then once I was ready, then I did the adaptation and we made the film.
So you mentioned a little bit of your work in television there. How did writing for TV and producing in TV, what tools did you get from that were useful in making this film?
Well, like I said, introducing characters, because that's what a pilot's job is. Also, I did the show Jericho, and I saw so many different directors get kind of the same result from completely different angles. Like, this guy's more actor-friendly, this guy's more technical. And what I learned was that there is no, quote, right way to direct, that you have your style. And that was very liberating to me, because I thought there was a right way. And once I realized that there wasn't, that you could just go with your instinct, I felt a lot more confident to try.
Did you want to make the film for a long time, like direct and write the screenplay without getting the go-ahead? What was the final green light that actually made the project happen?
Well, there's kind of the spiritual green light, the moment that you realize that it's going to happen, and then there's the practical. I'll do spiritual first. So I was working on Jericho, and I'm proud of the show, very, very proud of the show. But at the same time, by the end of the first season, I was feeling very outside of myself, and I saw this movie once, and I loved it. I loved that movie so much. I was like, God, here's this little movie.
It's a great movie.
Great movie, just great. Thought they made this entire movie for literally 5% of the budget of one of our episodes. I will watch this movie for the rest of my life. And it wasn't nothing against Jericho, because I thought
like 15,000, I think, right?
No, like 125,000.
Okay, sorry.
That's fine. No,
I had an extra.
You're really good. You're a hell of a journalist.
Curse you, Chbosky.
So
working from memory here, man.
Yeah,
Lay off.
no, it's good. You're fantastic. You're fantastic. So I'm watching it, and I was thinking to myself, kind of like, I'm supposed to be doing that. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. This show is great. And nothing against it, but that's it. And so I just kind of in that moment decided I'm doing my own stuff again. That's it. I started the screenplay that summer for Perks, That was the spiritual, and once I had it, once it was like a bee in my bonnet, I couldn't let it go, and it was going to happen. Like I do believe, and it's so hard. It's like I when my sister goes through auditions and everything else, I do believe that we as artists have a lot more self-determination spiritually than I think. I think that for whatever reason, the industry wants to keep us down a little bit and make us think that they're in charge, that they, when actually we are. If we decide that it's time to do something special. And so that was that. What the real green light, the practical green light, was Emma Watson. We had the team, we had the producers, we had Emma, we had Logan. Emma wanted to play Sam so badly, and she wanted to make this movie so badly that she flew out here, took all the meetings with all the heads of the studios, and they're pitching their wares to her, and she was like, I want you to make the Percy Jackson Wallflower. You have to make this movie. And Summit said yes. I mean, honestly, that's what it was, and we had a meeting after her dinner with Eric Feig, the head of Summit, and the meeting we were like, oh, well, maybe they're interested, and they're like, okay, so when do you want to start? And you're like, what? Did we just get a green light? Like what? It's
after all those years, finally, it's like
finally, yeah.
Actually happening. We talked about casting the movie back in Pittsburgh, but what was it like to actually go back and shoot the film there? Like, I assume there's kind of a Thomas Wolfe, you can't go home again kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, it was, but but you can, and I did.
They were receptive, even though you were kind of laying bare all their secrets.
Yeah, they were very receptive. There's only two. My high school was, I wanted to shoot there, and they were like, they never really officially said no, but they never really officially said yes. But it was just as well because Peters Township High School, right next door, that looked a lot more 90s, and they had these beautiful red lockers, and we're like, oh, we're happy here.
Do you think your school didn't embrace the story, or what was the
I don't, listen, there are a lot of people that embraced it, but I'm sure that, it's a fairly conservative town, and they're definitely, it's about what it's about. And so if certain groups don't...
It's not about kids behaving themselves, essentially, so there's that.
Yeah, if they're against the drugs or the gay or whatever it is, certain things, I'm not going to disparage the school district. I know a lot of the educators were like, we would love it. Mm-hmm. It's just, for whatever reason. But the town was fantastic, and that was great, And plus, I think it really helped. I think it helped the actors, kind of like my little history of the Kalmekas family. Because I wrote the book and because we're shooting in my town, and I made it a point to let the actors know, listen, you're not here to service my youth. I don't care about my youth. I care about you playing these parts, and I care about your summer, not my memory. And so, but that being said, if we go to the Hollywood Theater in Dormont, where I first saw Rocky Horror, and that's where we're shooting, and I can say to the guys like, oh yeah, the first time I saw all the people, we were right here. And it's literally 10 feet from where we created the dressing room set. There's a sense of, it gave it a detail, it gave it authenticity. And the actors were able to believe in their circumstances that much more because there was an element of reality to it. Or like the Luminaria scene, when the aunt is with little Charlie and there's the beautiful, bags of sand with the candles. That's my street, and you could turn the camera left and that's my house,
That was your actual street.
My actual street.
Not just that reminds you of your street, but wow, that must be great.
Ended up being
Does your family still live there?
Yeah, they do.
Wow.
Yeah, they got $1,500 of location fees. They were very
wow, lucky them.
They're and they got paid as extras, and they're both retired, so they're like, this is great, So
hard to direct mom and dad, or
yeah, and no, I would never. This is funny though. So because they were, they don't know what being extras and being background is. I mean, it's a hell of a hard job, and you're there for hours and hours, and then it's like you get called up, and then you got to go back. And it's so funny because we were filming. We ended up cutting the scene. It's on the DVD of Nina Dobrev had this really emotional scene in this parking lot, and so I'm going to give it time, and then we go in to do the church scene, which is right next door. And it's so funny. We finally get it, and we were behind by an hour and a half that day. And my mom came up, and she's like, "This is taking a long time, Stevie." So,
what are you, executive producer now, Mom? Like, what?
Totally, yeah. And my Aunt Mary Ann, she's just like, "What are you? I mean, why
time is money, Stevie.
Why don't we get to have their food?" I'm like, I don't know, I don't know. I don't know why there are these rules.
You're fired.
Yeah, you're fired. Yeah, your cousin Timmy couldn't be an extra because he's on Social Security and then he would have lost his benefits. I'm like, okay, I'm sorry,
Never shooting in my hometown again.
No, I will. I love it. I'll shoot there anytime I can.
People everywhere really connect with, especially the three friends at the center of this story. And I wondered, has it ever crossed your mind to revisit them and write a follow-up?
I have to say, yes, because I love these kids so much, and I never thought there's always like maybe I'll write a sequel. But it was never a passion of mine to figure out, can I do it, until I got this group together. Mm-hmm. But it wouldn't be like a, hey, sophomore year kind of thing. It would be more like a, later in life kind of
like
thing.
Like a 7-Up kind of thing, see where they are in a few years after.
It would be more like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know if it'll ever happen. I don't know, because I won't do it just to do it. I certainly would never. It means too much to me to try to exploit financially or anything like that. Mm-hmm. If it's organic and it's real and it's worthy, I think, of this group, then I'll do it.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. But is this something you're thinking about?
Wondering
Wondering where they went?
Yeah.
Yeah, terrific.
Yeah.
So we're not going to open it up to the audience for questions.
Really?
But we have questions that you guys wrote in advance. So if you didn't write one in advance, very sorry, but you're out of
we
luck.
can. Is that a rule?
That was the SAG rule, but maybe we can make an exception afterward.
It's much more fun if it's like interactive. Is it?
Hmm? How do you guys feel about that? I don't know. You're talking to a room of actors. I'm not sure they like being in the spotlight.
Yeah, we would repeat the question.
Well, they wrote these questions. We'll ask those.
Oh, this is from this group? Yeah. Oh, okay.
All right? All right.
I feel bad. I just,
So I'm going to call your mom and dad to come talk to you.
Right.
Settle down, man.
All right.
All right, so Jennifer writes, which scene was your favorite to shoot and why?
And where's Jennifer? Hello, Jennifer. My favorite scene, I have a favorite scene and I have a favorite moment. I'll do the moment first. The tunnel stuff, all the tunnel stuff was great. We did it over 2 nights, and it was such a blast to see it evolve, and we got lucky with some weather, and then other times, it started to rain. It's the wildest thing in the world to drive and then get to the Fort Pitt Tunnel and stop inside the tunnel and jump out with the rest of the crew and dry off a truck with towels to make it match, and then you have 25 seconds while they're driving in the tunnel to get the scene. So that, great, really fun stuff. The first kiss scene between Charlie and Sam in her bedroom. It's my proudest writing. I think there are better lines elsewhere, but I just love that scene. It meant a lot to me. It's very personal to me, and so yeah, I'd say that one.
So this question comes from Bailey. Are you out there, Bailey? What was the hardest part of adapting your own novel into a screenplay, and was it difficult having to cut or change parts for the screen?
Can you say that again?
Was it difficult to change parts of your novel for the screen?
Yeah, that was the challenge. I have to say, because a movie's different than a book, and because I knew I wanted the same. Let's put it this way: the book is very emotional. It's very intimate. It's very much feels like it's Charlie and you, and it's designed to feel that way. And I wanted the movie to feel the same, but it's such a different medium. It's not first-person narrative. It's objective. It's not a series of letters. It's the images that accompany them. For me, it wasn't difficult to lose things so much as it was to create the same feeling but based on scenes. Mm-hmm. Here's a good example. So in the book, like the scene with Paul Rudd where he says we accept the love we think we deserve. In the book, it's just Charlie going, I saw with Bill and blah, 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 and he's just describing kind of his day. And then Bill said something I'll never forget. We accept the love we think we deserve. And then, but, it was just one line. Now I have to build a scene and make that very written line feel like talking. Mm-hmm. That's really tricky. It's tricky if in the book, Charlie's talking about, oh, Patrick's so funny. And now you actually have to make Patrick kind of funny and get the right actor to make him funny. And you have to, Sam is so nice. He would literally say, Sam is so nice. And because he's a reliable narrator in the book, you just accept Sam and you like Sam because he likes her. But then here you have to write Sam out and give her a subplot and give her all these things but at the same time, feel authentic to the book for the fans of the book.
Whenever I talk to authors about their books and say, like, well, did you, when you reread it or something like that, they'll often say, oh, that was like so painful because it's been published and now I can't change it,
Right.
And was this sort of like just getting another shot at a rewrite?
It
Fix some
was
things
in a
you
way.
didn't like?
You know what's funny? The book. There are two things about the book. How many people know the book? I'm just curious. A few? Okay. There are two things about the book that I wouldn't change a word of it because it represents exactly what I was thinking at that time. But in the book, Charlie cries a lot in the book. The crying in the book, that when I was envisioning it, it was more of like the people that kind of get misty eyes when they watch commercials or whatever. To me, it was like a tea kettle. He had so much going on that any way to get something out. So that's how I wrote it. That's what it meant. And then you read it and you go, I think this probably feels like more like he's like just a weepy kid, and I don't want it to feel that way. So and I knew because of the visceral nature of it, so I got to have the non-crying version of Charlie, which was really great for me. And also in the book, he's incredibly sexually naive, maybe too much so, I don't know. I know why I did it in the book, but here I didn't even deal with most of that stuff. Yeah. So it was a chance to have one more crack.
So here's another question here. It says, I thought this movie was clearly one of the best of the year. Your casting choices
Great question.
were inspired.
Great.
See,
Fantastic.
Your mom and
question.
dad wrote this one. Bring them up again.
Yeah,
No.
it's great.
Your casting choices were inspired, and how important were the choices for music in both writing and the production of the movie? It's a good question about how music shapes it.
Yeah, what I love about that question especially, it was like it
And that's
really...
Michael in Denver.
Oh, so Michael's not even here? Wow.
No, I think this may have come from online.
Are we streaming or something?
Yeah, we are. Say hello to the camera.
Hello, Michael in Denver. Fantastic question. So it was about the music?
Yeah, about what kind of music influenced the writing, and how did you think about music in terms of the film?
Well, the writing of the book, a lot of the songs, The Smiths Asleep is a huge part of the book. Rocky Horror is a huge part of the book. But writing, it's funny, writing back then, whether it's book or movie, I'll just talk about movie. Mm-hmm. I wrote a lot of different songs spoke to me in different ways. Like I love the song Samson by Regina Spektor, and I wrote the entire first kiss scene to that song. I wrote the tunnel scenes not to Heroes. I wrote them to the song called Your Ex-Lover Is Dead by Stars. And there were actually so many great songs in the last 5, 6, 7 years that was the only thing that tempted me to maybe update it, but I said, no, I can't update it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, in terms of including, there were a few songs I knew going in were going to make it the movie. I knew the Air Supply song. I knew Come On Eileen by Dexy's Midnight Runners. I knew, and there were a couple others that I grew up with that I wanted to share with people, like Araby by the Reavers. These bands that meant a lot to me, even though they never broke big, like they're part of my growing up, and I love them. And Alexander Patsavas, our music supervisor, brought a lot of great things past that. So yeah.
So here's another question from Christina Rossi. What do you find to be the most difficult part of being a screenwriter? So apart from the other filmmaking duties you had, and what is the most rewarding?
The most difficult part of being a screenwriter is the glamour. No, I'm kidding. It's screenplays. It's funny. I've been talking to a lot of writers recently, panels and different things, and writing a novel and writing a screenplay. And I asked, why is it so? What is it about screenplays, in other people's opinion, that are so difficult? And they said because structurally they're unforgiving. In a book, you can have a tangent. You can go over here for 20 pages, and as long as it's somewhat interesting or a good character moment, people go with you. It's great. You can have like a 213-page book is a very short book. 213-page screenplay, they want to commit you.
Epic. Yeah.
Yeah. And because the structure is so unforgiving, and I think that is the most difficult. That is hands down the most difficult thing, because you have to say it exactly right in order for it to work. And not only that, you can say it exactly right as part of a blueprint. You have all the best intentions in the world. Once you have the footage and the performances you have, you then have to write to that footage. You have to write with the footage.
That's what editing is, essentially, right?
That's what it is,
Writing
exactly.
pictures.
You look at it and you go, wow, God, Logan and Emma have a lot of chemistry. So that scene on the steps at Craig's party, I cut the scene in half because I didn't need it. Like once she said, you know what I mean? He says, yeah. You're like, oh, I guess the scene's over. because the actors bring so much. So yeah, I think that's the most difficult thing. What was the best part?
The best part about being a screenwriter.
About being a screenwriter, I guess it's just I don't know. It's a really hard job. I think it's just the satisfaction. It's like when you got it right, when you figured out. Like for this one, I'd say in the novel, he says on page 2 of the novel, my best friend Michael killed himself, and I knew as a screenwriter, if I said that on page 2 of a screenplay, it's a suicide movie, and that's not what this was. And it's the moment I was like, I have to get this information about his best friend Michael in there. And I'm looking through the story, I go, oh, wouldn't it be cool if he said it while he was stoned to Sam, and then that would motivate her to be nicer to him and to get the toast, and it goes click, and you go, that's great. Yeah. It's the moment when, and this was a writing thing, this was not a directing thing. How do I get from Christmas to New Year's? Like in the novel, I had 45 pages. In the screenplay, I have 10 seconds. How do I get from the idea of Christmas to New Year, the idea of corruption, the idea of what we are taught as children and what we become, and then that's when the communion wafer becomes the tab of acid. That's a writing thing. And so when it really works, it's the best.
So this is a question from Jordan, and I think it's one you probably get a lot, but worth asking again. What advice would you give to an aspiring writer trying to break into the business, either as a novelist or a screenwriter?
Other than, of course, write what you're passionate about, write what you know, etc., which everyone says, I will say this is a really practical thing to any writer, and really, actually, this would apply to actors as well, in a different way. I'll start with the writer first. I have an exercise that I started about 5 years ago, which is write down every idea, literally every idea that you can think of that you have, and take your 5 closest, most trusted friends, or 10 or whatever, and say, here, read them. What do you think? What do you like? And you will be blown away how people will gravitate to the same 3 ideas. It's almost like a mini focus group. Like you're not. Look, if you want to write one of them outside of that 3, that's fine. That's your prerogative. But what I found is that writers being what they are, they're somewhat obsessive, and so they think, oh, this is it. I'm really into this. When really what this is not. That's actually not a good screenplay to write or a good novel to write. That's actually a great character for this awesome idea over here that everyone sees, and you go, oh, really? And you'll save a lot of time, and you'll write. Like I did that with my my assistant. And actually, who became an associate producer, she did such a great job on this movie, Ava. Ava's a wonderful writer, and I told her to, hey, do this process. And there was one idea that was a novel, and she was here to write screenplays, that everyone loved. And we all said, that's the one. She's like, really? Yeah, but it's a novel. But I'm okay. And so she did it, and she got a publishing deal and an advance.
When does it come out?
I think later this year.
Wow. What's the title? What's it called?
It's called Love Letters to the Dead.
And what's her name? Ava?
Ava Delira.
Excellent.
She's
We'll
great.
Keep our eye on
Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
want to break the rules a little and ask the audience for some questions?
I would love
since you love
that.
that. Okay. Does anybody have a really great question that they didn't write down that they want to ask?
Ma'am.
Yes. And I'll repeat the question for the folks watching.
I love your movie, by the way.
Thank you.
I moved to DC area originally, and the music clicked for me too as well. And I know you wrote the. I'm actually reading my card. Give you guys.
Just give me the card.
You have written the film in Rent, and also you wrote Jericho, and I see similarities. How did you approach Rent with your music background, and what type of film or story would you like to do?
So the question was about your screenplay for Rent. You adapted the play for the film, and what would you like to do next, right?
I do have something of a music background. I write songs, and it's something I love, and I love musicals, and I love the show Rent. I thought it was so great. And so I don't know if you had a specific question about adapting Rent, but yes, I do have a music background. In terms of what I'm doing next is, it's kind of similar in theme and similar in emotions to Perks, but it's told like my favorite storyteller is Stephen King. I love his work, especially like his early stuff, The Stand and The Shining, and these are like seminal stories to me. And so this one, it just begged to be told that way, And so that's what I'm doing right now, And I'm going to continue to write books and then adapt them because it's so gratifying.
Let's take like two more questions.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Can you get the soundtrack from the movie? 'Cause I'm not surprised.
Guy wants to know if we can get the soundtrack.
Yeah,
to the
you
movie.
can. Yeah. It's actually even available on vinyl if you're a collector. Yeah, that was a good. I begged for that one, and they said yes.
Wow, lots of questions.
Well, we can do a few more.
All right. You guys are up for that?
Yes.
Young lady here. Why don't you come up here?
What's the hardest part about directing for you?
The hardest part about directing, for me, it was post-production, because, see, I love. There are directors who love post, and there are directors who love production, and I love production because it's anything's possible. You get on the set, and the actor has a moment, and you love that, and you're like, oh, and then the blocking happens, and you're creating something wonderful, and it could be anything, and it's the best. I love that feeling. And then post is there's something that's so difficult where you go, the best moment, the best line reading of this line, her hand was here, and then his best, her hand was here, and you have to pick. And the perfectionist in my brain says, if only I could have both, and you can't, and it's hard to let go. I find it very hard to let go. So that's the most difficult.
Are you interested in being a director someday? Maybe. You want to do it all?
She wants to do it all. I
Wants
love
to do
it.
it all. That's
right.
what you do. You came to the right place.
Well done.
Writer, screenwriter, director.
Yeah, I love it.
So another question. Let's go to the way back, the guy with the gray striped shirt.
How do you create an audition atmosphere on Skype? Because if you say Skype, I have a picture of somebody on
How do you create a audition atmosphere on Skype?
He says because you might be hovering too close to the
You know what
computer
it is?
and weird.
There is no hovering too close. Here's the thing, and I would recommend, to any actor, even if you only intern for one day, to intern for a casting director and to see all the people come in. And the reason is that I feel like, and I know this because so many of my friends are actors and I love them very much, that things that should never be taken personally are taken personally. That you just see people come in and it just translates. If you're right for a part, it doesn't matter. It could be out of focus. I remember, and this is not exact casting, audition, but I did a Skype thing with my DP, Andrew Dunn. The video didn't work. He was in like rural London. I could barely hear him, and I knew he was my guy. You know what I mean? So it's not, I guess I'm not even creating the atmosphere because they're in Skype. They're wherever they are. So you kind of have to ask them. But it's just to know that when you're the right person, it just translates. That's what I feel anyway. And what's so great about it is, what Anthony was saying earlier, there's something inherently cinematic about it, And so you look at it and you think, wow, they're jumping out at me and they're this big, and I can't wait to get them in. I don't know. The essence of a person really comes through, I think.
Another question? Yeah, the red checked shirt there. You, sir.
Well, congratulations on a fantastic movie.
Thank you.
I was also wondering, you talked a little bit about giving a family bio to the family, like kind of shortly before you started filming. And there's a line about being 17 and not remembering what it is to be 16. Was there anything that you gave to the actors to kind of create that sort of bio for the character, that sense of, since some of them were a little older than the age they were playing, getting that mindset?
So in addition to creating the background material for the family, did you do anything for the other young actors playing kids in the movie?
Oh, yeah.
Especially to get them, because there's the line, it's hard to remember what it's like to be 16 when you're 17. So a lot of them are older than high school age, even
Yeah.
though they're playing high school age.
Yeah.
Did you have to create much to get them back into that field?
No, I didn't. You know what I had to do? There's a few things, and it was very important to me. The first and foremost thing was, and I said to all of them, that I want you guys to have the summer of your lives. I know, to me, and this is just my own personal rule. I've seen a lot of different directors, and I always look how good a director is, not for the performance they got out of that person, but how good that person is in their next movie. Was that person like cotton farmed and just like drained of everything that they had and treated like shit and feeling terrible, and then the next movie they're like shell or they're crazy or they've lost their compass or their true north, versus someone that says, I'm going to nurture this atmosphere. I want you to have a great time. I want you to make friends, and I want you to leave much fuller than when you arrived. That was like my rule. And I felt that not only was it just plain old good manners, but that it would lead to the best performances and the best sense of camaraderie, and it worked. There's other instinctive things, like, because I wrote the book, Mae Whitman, who played Mary Elizabeth, she was great. She showed up when she flew into Pittsburgh. She's like, "This is great. You did all my backstory," because she'd read the book and said, "This is my favorite color and this is my characters." So all that stuff that helped. And also, it's just, again, it's like an instinctive thing, and some things that you create and some things that are just lucky. The thing that I created was, like, when I got my 3 leads together for the first time, we had lunch together, but then I made it a point I'm going to leave Emma and Ezra together to create the homecoming dance. Because I just figured, rather than just a bunch of talk, since these are like wild kids, like they would really enjoy that, and they would set them free, and it worked. And then I'll take them all out to dinner, and then I told them all, do not go through the tunnel. The first time you go through the tunnel will be with me, and I'll take you through it. And I'll play this piece of music, and we're going to have this moment. And those things, like, they bonded us.
How did they get into town? That's the only way to get into the city from the airport.
Well, we stayed in the suburbs, man. We were,
I don't know another way.
we were at the Crown Plaza near South Hills Village Mall. So a little shout out there.
Okay.
But then some things were accidents. Like, you couldn't plan, but it's this when you got the right people. Like Emma, she worked really hard for her accent, and it was like almost like her level of passion, and she was going to get it right. And the first time we auditioned, or not auditioned, the first time we rehearsed, it was me, her, Emma, or it was Ezra and Logan, and she was really nervous in this like little room, this little conference room. And when you're nervous and you're thinking about yourself, you like waver. And it was there, but she was really inside of her own head. And the minute that happened, Ezra was like, it's just instinctive, like, I'm there for you. Like, I'm going to help you, and you're brilliant, and I believe in you. And that made him the big brother, And if she had been an American actress and didn't have that, I don't know, maybe something else would have bonded them. But, those are blessings.
So the gentleman right there would take one more question, yes, if it's a good one.
Earlier you said the thing about writing an idea and having a film, I think you were going to apply toward that.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry. I didn't.
So you said about writing the 10 ideas and having people choose them, and how do you apply that to being an actor?
Okay. This is how I would do it. So there are all these auditions that you guys go on, and the part would be cop, or you know what I mean. There are all these things, and what I found is, well, who's to say that you have to wait for any writer to give you a great character with a rich history? Who's to say that when you go in to just do a very, listen, I know, I've seen the sides. I know what you guys are given where you're like, there's nothing here. I can't play this. But who's to say that you don't have your own character of cop or your own character of any, because listen, we all know there's so many archetypical or what's the correct?
Typical, yeah.
All right. There are so many of those
Don't
archetypes.
ask me, I don't know the budget of once, so.
Yes. There's so many. Well done. Wow.
Smart guy.
Wow. Go Anthony. There are these archetypes, and we all know what they are. And why wait for a playwright or why wait for a screenwriter to give you that thing? You could write your own history of the Kalmekis family, and you could sit there and work on these characters, and then even if you took other texts and said to friends, I'm thinking these are my 3, I'm just working on these characters, almost like I'm doing a one-person show. So then if you're thrown into audition and you don't, even if it's like 3 words, you have history and you're specific and you're comfortable and there's authority there, and it's going to stand out.
So build characters that you carry with you.
That's right. They're your characters. I worked twice with John Leguizamo. Once we wrote a screenplay together that unfortunately did not get made because it's very funny. But I also helped him with his one-man show, Sexaholics, on Broadway. I helped him edit, and I wrote some jokes for him and stuff like that. And John's character, that guy he's so hardworking, he's so brilliant and inspired, and you see him do it, whether it's a character from his life that he's kind of is paying tribute to, or it's a character that he's coming up whole cloth to just serve as a stopgap. And John Leguizamo, if on the drop of a dime, could play one of 150 people. If you said, John, be your grandfather. And he's his grandfather. It's amazing to watch. It's amazing to help him edit, to do the right writing to bring it out. So, that's what I would say to any actor. Just like, there are great ideas, there are great characters. There's a character that you have in you that is, I guarantee, I just look at your face and I go, I know it. You could walk in with that level of specificity and I go, wow. That's, here, great story. Nothing to do with my movie, but another one, because I know Chris McQuarrie, who wrote The Usual Suspects. And he's a very sweet guy, helped me get my book published, so thank you, Chris. And he talked about Benicio del Toro in The Usual Suspects. I don't know if you ever heard that story, that he came up with that wild character, because in reading the script, he realized, you know what, in terms of my plot function, I'm only here to die. That's all it is. So it actually doesn't matter what I say, which is just like, wow, it's a very, So there are some artists that would be like, well, that sucks. Nothing I say matters. And then there are others that look at that and say, oh, that means it doesn't matter. And I can do this, the most outlandish thing ever, and he steals the movie. I think we all pretty much agree, like, what a revolutionary performance. That character came from the actor, not from the writing. So, that's how I would apply it.
Well, Stephen, thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you.
us for the screening. Thank you guys for sticking around. Great questions. Take care, everybody.